What a lovely intro. Look, I brought my cough bottle up because that's how I'm feeling right now. So I'm going to try and get through this without coughing and spluttering. But thank you. Welcome to my session. I was thinking, what do I talk about? And I just thought, have to be authentically me. So a little bit soapboxy, but it's how we change the game. But before I like to talk and get into this, I just like to reset the energy in the room. You've heard from a few people now. You're probably ready for another coffee, checking on your phones. Let's just take a few minutes to do something. All I want you to do is to just turn to the person or the people next to you and pay them a compliment. Whatever that is, whatever you see or feel in that moment, pay a compliment and receive it. Okay. Are we done? Right. Loving the energy. Let's wrap it up. I would never be good as a school teacher. I can't control the room. Guys, I love that because if you look around the room, you're all smiling. When someone pays you a compliment, they are responding to something that you look like, that you're giving off, how you make them feel. That is you, authentically and innately you in that moment. And it's a really powerful thing. And we need to get really good at, particularly us as women, of just going, thank you. Not making an excuse, oh, this old thing, or no, I couldn't. Actually saying thank you. So take that energy today. Think about what someone has seen and complimented within you and take that through you as you go through the day. So I am going to talk about if not me, now then who, when, and why I feel that the power to change the game lies within us. If not me, now then who, when, it's a phrase we've all heard said many times over the years. These simple yet profound words encapsulate both the essence of personal responsibility and the urgency of taking action in the present moment. So to summarize the quote's meaning, it challenges us to consider our own role in affecting change. For if we do not step up to bring about positive transformation, then who will? And moreover, it reminds us that postponing action only prolongs the obstacles we face, emphasizing the importance of seizing the current moment to take a difference. It's this exact phrase that I said to myself in Chicago almost exactly 9 years ago. I had a light-changing light bulb moment. I was listening to Arianna Huffington speak at a technology conference. She was promoting her new book, Thrive, where she was talking about redefining the metrics of success, what it takes to be a great leader of people in the modern world, how to get the best out of humans, and why now was the time that we needed to be bold enough to do things differently for the greater good. And that if you focused on people and you did it well, that you could drive great efficiencies and profitability and success at an organizational level. She connected with me and everything she was saying, and I just knew in that moment I needed to take a giant leap personally and professionally, and it was that moment that has led me to where I am today. So back then, sitting in that conference hall with however many thousands of people back in 2015, I was the senior vice president of a global technology company. In my mid-late 30s, we'd just secured investment to propel our growth. I was leading on global partnership deals, was doing $40, $50 million deals at C-suite level with the likes of Coca-Cola and Unilever and PepsiCo. I spent half the month in the States, traveled regularly to Asia, where we were doing projects with governments and global NGOs to tackle food safety, traceability, sustainability issues. I mean, I could talk to you about sensor-driven technology and end-to-end traceability, but that's for another day. But this was the world that I found myself in, being headhunted, being young, globally, vice president statement, getting to travel the world. And I was also able to do it really authentically me, like young mother, pink heels, pink lipsticks. I was credible, and I learned a lot in that. But Prior to being headhunted for this role, I had been running my own business. It was here that I found my passion for women's sport. Forced to leave full-time employment, like many women do, after the birth of my fourth child when she was born with a heart tumour. Nothing like being faced with your own child's mortality to figure out what is important and what you need to do. And like many women in that situation, she needed significant medical support. I needed to work. I needed to be at home. So I set up my own business. And it allowed me to work flexibly around the needs of my family and my new baby. So at that time, I was offering brand, business, PR, marketing, commercial consultancy services to a range of brands and organisations, and one of whom happened to be Netball Scotland. Their new CEO, Maggie, had come out of retirement to lead this governing body that was small, but in it, she just had so much passion and belief. With the home Commonwealth Games coming to Glasgow in a few years' time, she saw an opportunity to grow netball on and off the court. And while she knew the sport, she didn't really know how to unlock its potential from a business and commercial point of view. And that's where I came in. We met by chance and instantly connected, and through working with her, I realised I innately understood the power and potential of a female sport because of the power of a potential of a female audience. So for almost 2 years I worked with them. I rebranded the organisation, brought in new commercial partners, delivered major events, world competitions, secured a BBC documentary. If you go digging for it, Game, Net and Match, there's a very young Claire Nelson in that. And we generally redefined how people saw, consumed and engaged with the sport and organisation. And during this time, it really did become quite a mission. I quickly became aware of and frustrated by the massive inequality shrouding women's sport, and I just couldn't, and I still couldn't understand why no one could see what we all know now about the power of a female audience and the potential for women's sport to grow and diversify in an industry to unparalleled levels. Like, women were making decisions in the home, women hold the purse strings, women consume content, like there's a whole audience there. Why were we not catering to them? So I started to challenge the system and began to build a reputation as being very vocal about needing to and justifying change for the industry. I loved my work with Netball Scotland. But whilst I found my passion in this work professionally, it couldn't provide what I needed financially as a full-time proposition. So when I did get headhunted in 2013 to lead the growth of that new global tech company, I just couldn't say no. So fast forward to those few years to being settled in a well-paid new tech role, listening to the wonderful Ariana in Chicago, I had an epiphany where I asked myself, if not me now, then who when? The role of Netball Scotland CEO was being advertised and everyone was asking me if I was going for it, and yet my head was telling me to stay where I was in a role that could set me and my family up for life. But my heart went over my head, and I realised that I needed to walk my walk and apply for the position. I knew that all of my personal and professional experiences had led me to this moment and to this opportunity. And I haven't talked about my childhood, but I often start there because it was a bleak place, and every single personality trait that I had, I was systematically told were not what the world needed. The people around me that should encourage you made me fearful, and I was scared, and I was torn down at every single time. So this girl who just knew and wanted and believed more but had lived this experience, then becoming this mother operating in a traditionally male-dominated environment, and then becoming the passionate advocate for the commercialisation of women's sport. All of these things have been shaping and preparing me for this role. And even though I would have been more than halving my salary and was walking away from a huge global role, I'd never been surer of what I wanted and needed to do and what I knew I could do. I wanted to reposition this minority non-medal winning sport into realising its full potential as a leading, thriving organisation led by women for women. And I needed to drive change in the industry. So in October 2015, I became the CEO of Netball Scotland very quickly after I launched our Netball Super League club Sirens. And through this platform, I was able to show what women's sport and my sport of netball could achieve with the right commercial strategy behind it. In our first year of competing in the Super League in the 2017 season, I secured £325,000 worth of cash sponsorship. Those levels of commercial investment into a women's sports club were unheard of back then. And I wasn't selling that off the back of eyeballs and, reach. I was selling it on impact, on why brands should work with women's netball to tell stories, to change the game, to reach more, to monetize better. So I sold huge levels of cash sponsorship. We got 4,500 people to our first ever home game at the Emirates Arena. We then became recognised nationally for our innovative marketing and impact campaigns. I was able to use the platform to challenge the system and evidence the impact that the right investment and visibility can have on women's sport. And that impact was that our participation levels grew, our power as a sport increased, and the whole ecosystem for our sport strengthened. Honestly, sounds a great story. Despite all the success, this was the hardest work I ever undertook. The days that I sat in my car with my head in my hands wondering how I could keep going were countless. The silent struggles, the waking up in the middle of the night, it was daily. And whilst everyone else saw the positive, focused, driven front that I always put on, that front, it was so hard, but I kept going back to the if not me now, then who when. And I knew that it was this hard because the scale of change that was needed was so damn big. So here I am today in this amazing new role. I'm about 11 months in as the Managing Director of the Netball Super League, leading us on our first stages of relaunching our competition, big relaunch next year to take our sport on a whole new journey. I believe that we have an unparalleled opportunity to truly redefine what women's sport looks like, to build for new audiences, to not be a female version of a men's sport, but to truly drive this intersect between sport, entertainment, lifestyle, health, well-being, impact, and create something meaningful that new fans, future fans want, and that can take our athletes on the journeys that they need. So I'm here, we're in a moment once again, we know that, can get these moments in time when you can feel that there's a shift change coming. The same drivers that led me to take on my role with Netball Scotland 9 years ago also sat behind my decision to apply for this role. I know what our sports needs to unlock its full power and potential, and this time I get to be part of making that on a larger scale. But again, I'm already exhausted. I'm standing here off the back of honestly, some of the hardest few weeks that I've ever faced professionally. But I know I can grind it out for the greater good, for the bigger picture of what we're building for our future fans, players and leaders. And I guess that's why we're all here, isn't it? We're all the game changers. Everyone who works in women's sport is doing so because we are passionate and purpose-driven. We believe in a better, fairer world. We are the moment, we are the movement, we are leading the change, whatever our role, whatever our sport. And as women, we're doing it all in a system that's working against us. We don't have the majorities at the boardroom. We don't have the majorities at C-suite level. We do not have the majority eyeballs. We do not have the majority spend. And on top of this, we also, as women, have to deal with, those other factors that we have to deal with every single day, like menstruation, menopause, pregnancy, childbirth, child loss, being the majority responsible caregivers in the home, carrying most of the mental or financial load within our families, the cost of living crisis disproportionately impacting us. I mean, the list is endless and the odds feel like they're stacked against us. And yet, we've made the choice to be part of this moment, to take on the challenge and to fight through it, because we are in that moment where the conversation around women's sport has changed. We no longer have to fight to justify around our credibility or convince the world of the massive consumer power and potential of a female audience. We hold value, we hold commercial value, and women are finding and using their voices to want and demand more as fans and athletes. And while progress is being made, we know there's still so much to do. It all starts here in this room. Each and every one of us, whether a coach or a CEO, player, administrator, an investor, an officiator, we are all the collective game changers live in a moment. This group as a collective holds huge power, but that collective only becomes powerful when each individual is the strongest and most empowered version of themselves, and that we are equipped with the ability to take on every challenge that's thrown at us. because, as I said, it's hard. As someone who's built a profile of making progress in women's sport, leading change, I've had more no's than yeses. More doors will be closed on you than opened. I fought what it's felt like to be thankless battles, often alone. And you're doing it all the while thinking you're not enough as a mum and you're not doing a good enough job. So it's really, really tough. But it is our passion, and it's how we think, it's how we feel, and it's what we believe to be right. So every time there's a challenge, we need the resilience and the belief within us to keep moving, to keep ploughing forward regardless, all the while making sure we're looking around us. Who are those women, those girls, those allies that we need to pull along, stick a pinky out and take them on the journey, building the strength of the collective. I don't want people to come to these things and sit and think this isn't about me, like I'll leave this up to the leaders, this is not my lane, she's not talking about me, like I couldn't do that, I don't know how to make a difference, I'm just one person. Well, let me tell you, yes you can. Let's think about the collective. The collective is power. Everyone makes the collective, so ask yourself, if not me now, then who when? Because each voice, no matter how small, when brought together with others, becomes a roar and a shout, a noise so loud it cannot be ignored. My concern, though, is that having spoken a lot of female-focused events recently, what I do know to be true is that the system gets to us. It's hard. It's hard to be a woman right now. The system gets to us. We are lacking confidence. We are lacking resilience. We are not feeling we are good enough. We are cruel to ourselves internally. So going back to how we build the strength of the collective, we need to be strong as individuals. So how do we drive that change? Well, it starts with you. And I always talk about this. Every time I have an opportunity to stand on a stage, I always want to talk about this. Change starts within us, and it all comes down to our inner narrative. You are the main characters in your story. There are other characters that come and go, different important children, wives, families, whatever that is, but you are the main character, and you have a constant narrative, monologue going on in your head. That monologue is driven by the things that you think, say, and believe about yourself, your I ams. What do you say about yourself? Now, most of your I ams and what you've been said about yourself are formed. A lot of them come from school or childhood or different experiences. I'm not confident, I'm not cool, I'm not sporty, I couldn't do this, whatever they are, they're in there. When these things embed into a habit, we then stop noticing them. Habits become unnoticeable. They just become part of what we do, how we think, and where we go on our journey. So go away from this and write down your I ams. How do you talk about yourself? What do you say about yourself? How do you describe yourself? And then really dig into, where did that come from? How did that form? Is it true? Do you like it? Do you want it? And then rewrite it. What do I want to say about myself? Who do I want to be? And then when you start to say that and you look yourself in the mirror, and even if you don't believe it, you keep saying it every single day, you will start to then form the new habits that will reflect where you want to go and who you want to be in the world. Because there's no one else going to do this for you. You've got to do that work yourself. So rewrite that script. Start to say them every day. And if you're a coach or you're a teacher or a leader, get the people around you to do the same. I did an event with the FA last week with young girls between 14 and 16, and the way they talk about themselves is disgraceful. Like, how do we change the world with these incredible creatures when this is what they're saying about themselves? So let's start to rewrite our I ams, and let's start to get stronger. And just in case anyone needs to hear it today, I'll start you off. You are enough. You are more than enough. You are good enough. And you need to hear that. So from now on, every time you're faced with a challenge or opportunity, I want you to ask yourself, if not me now, then who when? And own your power as part of this collective mission. And piece by piece, brick by brick, we will start to build at a better rate the foundations and the walls of the system in which we need to exist. That better, fairer future where we are all at the right tables, influencing all the right decisions, which enable all the right opportunities for all women and girls to flourish and thrive in and through sport. And I'm just going to end talking about my sport. I always say that netball, being a truly female-first sport, predominantly played, watched, led by women and girls, that is both our biggest challenge and our superpower. The challenge being that we lack the funding and scale of a male sport that can help to unlock our full power and potential as a sport. It's so much harder for us because we just don't have that behind us. However, by goodness, that superpower is something else. And that's how I feel about us as women. Like the weaker species, shut up. Look at what our bodies do. Look at what we fight against every day. Look at how we choose to show up and how we drive that energy against all odds into being change makers and visionaries. So I am proud to say we are power, we are the future, and I'm so glad that every single day I say it is me now, and I will continue to do that until my job is done in forming that better, fairer future for women and girls. Thank you.
Wow. Now that's the talk we all needed, wasn't it? Blimey, Claire. Would you be happy to take a question or two
of course,
now?
Yeah.
Okay, we have time for 2 quick questions because, I don't know how anyone's going to follow that, but please, if anyone has got a question now, raise your hand. Oh, yeah, right there, mic's coming to you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Georgia from Ad Management. We share a lot of the same values around commercial in women's sports. One of the things I face quite regularly is obviously there's a lot less bums on seats traditionally, especially in the world of football, for example, something I work quite a lot in. And it's justifying that to sponsors, actually the value of the people that are there. So there might be a much smaller number of people there, but are they perhaps more valuable to the brand? So I just wondered what type of things you say to brands to get them on board in that situation.
I generally go into brands having done my homework, and then I go and do a Braveheart freedom speech and just get everyone sold behind it, because it's not about traditional metrics at this moment in time. It's about different metrics. And look, we want to grow the bums on seats. Well, that then becomes, we've got to get the product right. So the investment in the product that understands what women and female audiences want is really critical. So there's a lot of data. Let's go back to women have been disproportionately impacted by cost of living crisis. So the data is showing they're buying less and later. They want more value for the money, and they are likely to be caregivers. So creating the product and the permissions and all those bits that go into then encouraging and enabling a female audience to become a fan regularly. There's a big picture here at play, and we can't look at it through the men's lens. It's also looking at, is it bums on seats or is it engagement and eyeballs? Digital is huge. The power of a female digital audience is absolutely massive. So creating that content that gives you an annualized proposition that just doesn't sit outside the how many weeks and months of a competition gives you more. You can build fans for life and longevity. And when you look at some of those things like through F1 or what's happened in NFL, women are buying and they are engaging through different ways in their sport, and when they're in, they're very powerful. So I think we want to get more bums on seats. The product's got to be right. That takes investment. It takes a product and investment that is aligned to the needs and wants of women and girls. And then it's looking at what else can be done around that is far more powerful than men. And just to the comments around F1, you've got more eyeballs on F1 now than ever before, so why are we not catering to a female audience? But interestingly, I always use an example. I was speaking to Netball New Zealand years ago, and they were going for $1 million deal with Black & Decker, and I was like, oh, that feels like a very traditional male brand. And they said yes, because behind every man that needs to buy a drill is a woman going, fix that, paint that, sort that. And it's just, cars. We've realised that men aren't going to buy cars unless their women, wives like the look of them. So it's really taking what we know to be traditional, breaking it down, and then using the data to start to create these new commercial opportunities and propositions that allow us to diversify into a greater market.
What an answer. Well, we're going to have to leave it there, but I know Claire's going to hang around until the next break, which is after the next panel. But please, put your hands together for the absolutely wonderful Claire Nelson.